But great to see everyone here. And I'm hoping that those that were in the other link, the other Zoom link, are able to find their way to us this afternoon. So I want to welcome you all to session 2 of the Spring Living series. Today is session 2 of 6. Life flows, the land reawakens us. And I'm going to ask Parker if you would disable the wait room so that people joining later are able to come in without delay. Hello? Once again, I want to welcome you all who are joining today's session 2 of our Spring Living series. We have a fantastic group of panelists that will be sharing and interacting with all of you. Of course, our hope is to provide a safe and supportive venue to help guide each other through these continued difficult times connected to the pandemic that is going on. But we're really happy to have you all here with us today and hope that you enjoy today's broadcast. I have a few slides I'll go through, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to our lead panelists today, and we will begin. This event is brought to you by the National American Indian and Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center, which is located at the University of Iowa. We are part of a national ATTC network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latino center, and a ATTC network coordinating office at the University of Missouri in Kansas City. This project is funded by SAMHSA. The content is developed by the presenters, and the opinions expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian and Alaska Native ATTC. Following today's event, we will reach out to you via email. This will include, may include links to today's slide presentation. We will be recording and are recording this device, although we may pause the recording. Oh, what just happened there? We may pause the recording at some point per request of the presenter. We will be pausing the recording at some point at the request of the presenter. So just keep that in mind, but we will restart the recording when it's appropriate. At the end of today's event, we'll also share a link to a short survey. This survey is important to our center and to our funders. It ensures that we're able to continue to provide events such as this. Your participation in this survey is voluntary, but we would really appreciate you taking a few minutes to complete this questionnaire. You can skip any questions you want, and you do not have to, and just be aware that all of your answers will be kept confidential and cannot be linked to you in any way. You can reach out to myself or anyone here at the center if you have questions about that short survey. I know we're gathered here virtually today, but we wanted to take a few moments to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement, which was created by 3 members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Sean Mayer. Thank you. Again, this is the list of our presenters today. Some of the presenters may or may not be able to join due to other commitments, but these are our primary panelists, and they will be joining us throughout the series. So I want to welcome everyone again and give a welcome to our panelists for being here today. So thank you very much. You're all currently muted. the audience is. You can use the chat box feature if you have any questions or comments, and you can unmute yourself if the opportunity presents, if you want to engage and interact with the speakers today. So thank you. I'm going to pull my screen down, Sean, and see if I can get your PowerPoint up, and you just let us know when we need to pause the recording. See if I can get this one down. Okay. Okay, can you guys see that screen okay? Does that look all right? Okay, Sean, I'll turn the floor over to you. Doc Foster, welcome. Okay, Sean or Dan, the floor is yours. Welcome everyone to session 2.
Go ahead, Sean. Take it away, bro.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so the part of what me and Dan were talking about before is, is a lot of times when it comes down to like different seasons and things like that, during those times, it's like there's certain spirits and things like that come out during certain seasons, and there's, different medicines, different group or different spirits and things like that associated with different things and the directions, of course, and things like that. But a lot of times what happens is they awaken us and also our medicines and things within us. You can turn a slide. Okay, so as some of you might feel now, maybe, is that during this time, we're going into spring, and a lot of times what happens is a lot of times people look at the calendar for seasons and things like that, but we can't always follow the calendar. The calendar is kind of just, maybe about when things happening, but within nature and things around us, certain animals come back, certain things happen with the spring. It's like now here, we're seeing the thunders come back. We're seeing different, like the robins and things like that come back. A lot of times there are certain signs within the sky that lets us know when spring is coming. And some of that has been passed already, but we see so many different things. Like even how you talked about like April showers, or, you have in March where you have kite season and all that stuff, and it's all coming about now. And we can't always go by the calendar itself. But also what happens is during this time is that what is happening around the season, it also affects us. It's like you might see yourself needing more sleep. You might have days where you're feeling more energy and things like that, but it's what's happening. Maybe our dreams change during this time. It allows us to adapt to what is happening around us in our lives and things like that as well. It's just like stress. Stress can be hard on our bodies and stuff like that. We might sleep more or something like that, but we need to be able to take those kind of things into consideration when we're looking at our surroundings and seasons or emotions and all these kind of things like that. But there are many tribes, as well as various medicine and spiritual practices and knowledge for the purpose of finding answers, you know, healing, speaking to spirits, etc. But this is part of what we're all looking at in the change and things like that. Dan, do you have anything?
Thank you, Ray. Ray, thank you, Sean. You too, Ray. Sorry, we just had some people in our house inspecting us, and so be it. And folks, on the introduction, Haumatakupi, Dan Foster, Manchipelo, I welcome you, even though in our colonized world, I was Cherokee because I wasn't enough of a blood quantum of Lakota Dakota, but my tradition culturally is Lakota Dakota, and I don't know too much about the Cherokee other than, you know, we do have relatives and acknowledgement there. Thank you, honey. But in the spring, we always said that the world around us, we don't really call it nature because we're part of it. We're part of this natural world. And so with the spring comes taste. Now in this grocery market day, it's not like it once was, but those of you that do the garden and then those of you that do the gathering and the berry picking and all that, you know that you even salivate for different collection, not just of medicine, but of food. And so the winter season, we would store meat, we would store pemmican, we would store things, and we would make it through the winter. We would prepare for it. But with the spring came not just sights and not just the beautiful sounds, girls not quite so loud, not just the beautiful sounds of the birds, but also the smells. You know, we talked about the spring rain that Sean mentioned, the smell of the new rains on the earth, the smell of the prairie flowers and the mountain flowers and whatnot in bloom, the smell of when the plants would ripen, the smell of the animals when they'd be moving around, and when they'd first, even rattlesnakes, when they first come out of their den, oh my goodness, you can smell them in the rocks before you see them, where they've denned up and hibernated for the winter. And I bring this up because our concept of spirituality and connection and relationship is of connection. And for example, spiritually, while we in our humanity we experience individuality, but spiritually our belief is the how I greeted you. I greeted you as Matakiopi. I greeted you as relatives. Girls, not so loud, guys. Hi Hayden. Good morning. And is we're connected to everything that ever was, that is right now, and ever will be. That knowledge, that wisdom is also part of everything. Do we carry it individually? Not really, but we have access to it, and it is in us. A remarkable record of the past, but a remarkable preparation. We call it epigenetic. Girls, a remarkable epigenetics and preparation for the future too. So I want to remind you of the learning of which we're a part, and we fluctuate. We're part of this natural world. We fluctuate. Our highest aspiration on our finest day is not our normal. No, just get the one. So anyway, I'm going to have to interrupt here for a minute. Sean, take back.
All right, thank you, Dan. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we often see is that many times today, like in different studies, different things we see around different all across the America, and even books and writing and stuff, is many times people write about natives as we're just one kind of people, but we know that that's not the case, and that there are many different practices within all across, you know, tribal Indian country and stuff like that, is that and through that there's been different practices and stuff like that that have been
Someone's email is up now.
Steve, we can see this on the screen.
So I have different practices and stuff that have been, adopted or things like that by other tribes. And one thing we need to look at is that in doing so, sometimes the knowledge can be forgotten. Sometimes the knowledge was not passed along with those. So, through historical trauma, through history and what is happening, a lot of times most people look at intergenerational trauma as just the trauma itself. But part of that historical trauma is also things that have been lost, such as language, practices, knowledge, certain beliefs, and different things like that. It has led to more tribes adopting other tribal practices and teach. But what happens is that sometimes in those practices, not all the teachings and the knowledge that goes along with it is passed on with those. And that's something that needs to be able to be taken into consideration. Because when we're looked at from outside, our tribal ways and things like that, others kind of think of us as more as Pan-American Indians, or that we practice Pan-American Indian ways, and that there isn't really any of those. When we look at old history and where things come from, we can see where certain practices or different foods and different things like that came from other areas of the country. And so a lot of times we might think of something as traditional when it might not be as traditional as we thought, because those might have been practices that were used by other peoples before. Let's see here. So when we're looking at that, a lot of times with medicines, with ceremonies, with if you have or ever had like a medicine teacher or anything like that, even upon one ceremony, there's a whole bunch of knowledge that goes along with that.
I know.
And that there's many different teachings that go along with that. I mean, you could have 10 different teachings and things like that that are focused on only one ceremony. And a lot of times what we see today is like maybe a sweat lodge or something like that, but there are a whole bunch of smaller ceremonies set within that. So in ceremonies and songs, there are considered what they call words of power, in a sense. They're utilizing certain medicines, maybe with animals, plants, stones, fire, all this kind of stuff like that. And the knowledge that goes along with the use can be.
I will be done at 1 o'clock. I will take you then. I'm doing my best.
With the teachings. This may have come to those who have spent time communicating or things like that with spirits and their ancestors. Some of it may have come down from their teachers or their ancestry. So it's something to be able to take into consideration when we're doing those things. Okay. Next slide, please.
And Sean, if I may jump in here quick.
Go ahead.
Something I didn't finish saying, it's not just the odors. Our relationship is the texture, it's the sound, the different sounds of the different snow and the ice and all that. When you go from the snow to the melt, back to the earth again, in areas where you have lots of trees, the different sounds under your feet, from the leaves or from the needles from the prior season. So it's texture, it's sound, it's feel. We engage in our university, which is what we call nature, which is the world about us and the world within us. And we are nature, we reflect. But the thing that we're kind of leaving out is vibration. And so the Beach Boys talked about good vibrations, and they might have looked for some artificial help, and it might have taken them too far on that vibrating thing. But we use drums, we use music, we use song, but we vibrate, we resonate to each other. And even we might consider a rock as inert, but it isn't. It's vibrating. It's full of energy. We might consider a feather as inert, but it isn't. It's full of energy. We might consider the flora and fauna, the earth, air, sky, water, the fire that's within the earth. but it's all full of vibration. And so we capture when Sean talked about the music and the power, but it's not just our most powerful songs in our tradition are vocables. They don't even have words. And it's the vibration that calls forth spirit. It's the vibration that calls forth connection. And those of you that are in therapy kinds of roles, it's critical that you're able to vibrate with your client. It's critical that you're able to vibrate with your group. Can we do this here? And we found out we can. Spirit is not limited. Spirit is confined by belief, not by distance. So you can feel, you can experience the vibrations of one another. I've had so many people in the white world, spirit is not as important as it is in the native world. In the native world, how I feel when I left you tells me about your medicine with me and tells me about my medicine with you. It matters. It matters. In the white world, we tend to believe that we're rational and that where everything is logic and stuff. There's a portion of our brain devoted to that, and that's this wonderful frontal lobes, and they're remarkable. What a gift. I give thanks for the frontal lobe. But we're mammals. We're mammals. And we're a species that is part of the mammalian family. And mammals have rationality, but more than rational, we have more instinct than we realize. And the vibrations both within us and around us matter. And so springtime is a time where we're calling forth the vibration of renewed life, of the cycle of life, the circle of life beginning again. And so we're saturated with sound, we're saturated with sight, we're saturated with wind and feeling, with taste, with odor. And so thank you, Sean, for letting me start to touch on the vibration and then the use of vibration and connection and in healing, in restoring balance. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, so part of this here is also saying that, it's part of, like, in passing down different teachings and passing down different knowledges that come with certain ceremonies or with certain practices. We need to remember too that a lot of times those things came from people long ago, and different medicine peoples, different healers, different things like that. And a lot of times they sacrificed for certain things. There are tribes that have fasting practices that can last, up to 40 days that I've heard of. It took a whole year to prepare for that 40 days. And a lot of times I think people don't always take those kind of things into consideration of the sacrifice that teachers and their teachers and their teachers' teachers went through in order to pass down the knowledge that they have. And it's very important for that, because there are so many different teachings and knowledges out there that many people have not heard. Because a lot of times what happens in studies, people will say that we have our medicines and that people kind of learn them by trial and error. But that's not really the case. I mean, people fasted for those, people sacrificed for those in order to bring that knowledge forward from the spirit world. Because they say that for every sickness and disease, there's a plant, there's something out there that can help those. And that's what we kind of went by. And a lot of times today, people said, once a practice or knowledge is lost, it can never be got back again. But ever since I was a young little child, my ancestors, grandfathers and everything always said that those can all be brought back. But it takes people to go out and sacrifice in order to bring those back. So it's something to kind of take into consideration when we're looking at all this stuff. Dan, you have anything?
One of when what Sean is talking about is and some of the Christian, and I'm sure that there's mystic tradition among Jewish, among Muslim, among Baha'i, certainly. But part of the mystic tradition is that we're part of a bigger whole. We're connected to, some people call it higher power. I don't know about higher or lower. I don't know if you go to the depths of the ocean, if life there is any less legitimate than life on the top of a mountaintop. I don't know that a lichen or a sea urchin, how do you value all the expressions of life, all the expressions of creation? What do you do with that? He's grouchy, got a late start, and we don't, but we're connected to all of that life. We're connected to it by energy. We're connected to it by source. We're connected to it by creation. We're all expressions of life in creation, and we're all related. Not related. Actually, we find that we are actually related biologically too. How crazy is that? But we're related spiritually. It's all connected, and so we get instructions. We get instructions from that higher power, from that greater fabric, from that life source that has no beginning and no end, that infinity. But we can't even have the experience of it without the finiteness of life. And so our ceremony and tradition came with sacrifice, with prayer, and also with revelation, which is a part of many of our spiritual traditions. But it's essential, something that we've had in this pan-Indian world ever since the relocation in the 50s is kind of a buffet of spiritual practices. And it's not that we can't identify with one another's spiritual practices, we can. But there are many expressions of life. There are many expressions of human life. There are many expressions of human culture. There are many expressions of connection to the higher, lower, greater, whatever you want to call it, cosmos, connection to spirit. And so we fast and pray. Sometimes in Lakota, they would translate Wakantanka as great mystery. Albert Whitehat used to be frustrated with that translation. Lexi Albert said, it might be mysterious, but it's not mystery. That's why we fast. That's why we pray. That's why we go into ceremony, is to be familiar with that larger cosmos, to be familiar with that smaller cosmos that we're all connected to. And so it's critical. I used to want to learn songs because I've enjoyed ceremony. I like our ceremony. I like that our ceremonies are in nature. Our ceremonies are with water and earth and fire and water and air. I'm glad. I like the odors. I like the sensation. I like the darkness. I like the light. I like the feeling. I like the struggle in the rainstorms, and I like the struggle in the heat. I like ceremony. I've always valued it, but I had a hard time with some of the songs. It was hard for me to learn some of the songs sometimes, but my grandpa and uncles and others would never sing the songs outside of ceremony because the songs belong to the vision which the ceremony came from. And so we don't want to lose any of that energy. We don't want to lose any of that healing, of that restoration, of that regain of power. And so it's not just who has the best voice. It's not even about the best voice. It's about spirit. It's about about the energy. My Christian friends call that Holy Spirit. It's about the vibrations, the good vibrations. Thanks, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's what we're kind of getting into is like, and talking about was different practices within different tribes. And of course we have sweat lodges and stuff like that. So, whatever name they're going to be able to be used, some, like they might call it a Nepi and Great Plains, and some might have different practices for that and knowledges. But a lot of times these different teachings and practices have so many different things that go along with that. And different healing practices or whatever it might be. I mean, some might use certain kind of medicines in order to smudge where it brings out things within a body for a person. So a lot of those can be utilized within behavioral health or other health services that bring healing, bring direction, strength, and alleviate stress associated with withdrawals. Depending upon the person who runs the ceremonies, which can be very important, the various knowledge levels or gifts that these people hold can bring about the ceremony and the power even stronger. So, and when they have those correct teachings and the knowledge and stuff like that, they're able to bring about more than what somebody might be able to do with just starting to do that. I mean, I think on one call we were talking, and we were talking about the things that happen in a ceremony or in a sweat lodge or something like that, where you can actually see lights and you can actually see things, or you might see other people within the sweat that that physically are not there. You know, you might have wings hitting upon you. You might have gourds hitting upon you. You might have different things like that where the spirits are coming in and doing some of those work, because that's what happened. Like when you look at like the Sedona incident, they didn't understand these things. They think it's just the heat and putting hot stones in there and just sweating, you know, and getting as hot as they possibly can. But when you look at that, it's not always about the heat. It's about the power and the gifts that these healers have in bringing about that healing, where they call certain spirits or powers, or whatever it might be, to come in and do the work for them. Dan, have anything on that?
And the way we go about that, though, is very specific, because it has to do with the relationship of the human being that first was introduced to that power through the vision of fasting and prayer. And so we it's not just in the springtime. We go on visions throughout the year, throughout the equinoxes, and so not just summertime, not just springtime. But the springtime visions could be particularly powerful because of the Wakia, of the thunder beams, the four directions, the four winds, Tate Topa. They both bring and take away, and they're powers that are forces that are much greater. I lost the top canvas off my sweat lodge 2 nights ago. I'll find it in a tree somewhere. We respect that aspect of our relatives. We have medicine for splitting winds. We have medicines for storms and things. Yes, we do. But those medicines also have a price. They have an outcome that we may not wish to pay. We have much knowledge. Most of psychopharmacology came from American Indians, North, Central, and South America. The psychopharmacology of the world. This was how powerful. Again, read that Jack Weatherford book, Indian Givers, and he talks very specifically about a lot of the world's cuisine and a lot of the psychopharmacology. I'm going to go ahead and sing a song. And Sean, what I was looking for when I disappeared so naturally in my household with our kids and grandkids, if I'm going to look for a hammer, I will not find a hammer, but I'll find a saw. And so I found my drumstick. I found several drumsticks, but I did not find any of my drums. I have several drums, big to small. Would you go get it, son, if you know where it's at? But I'm gonna go ahead and sing a song. You want to come sing with me, honey? Okay. Where's your sister? Is she around? You want to sing, Captain? So let's sing a song. And this is a song. It's an invitation song. And so this is a song where we invite the energy of the helpers. And in this song, in the words in English, it says that we always call first to the universe in a personal way before we pray. before we eat, before we do any aspirational action of substance. Girls, come on, we're going to sing the calling song.
If I know it.
Take your hat off. Wakataka.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're kind of like talking about this and like the students of medicine peoples and having somebody to teach somebody different things. It's a lot of times very important. Students learn not just healing practices, but they also learn spiritual laws, the teachings that come with them, and why certain things are done in a certain way, and how things came to be. You get the history of a lot of things and why things are as they are. So when we look at the many sacrifices that they've gone through, teachers and so forth were a part of that individual teachings to further the practice and knowledge and to gain expertise in those. Because one teacher to a student, and that becomes a student to another student, what happens is those teachings grow, and the amount of knowledge and stuff like that also grows. I know that one thing I've always heard was what teachers would hope for is that their students grow beyond them. And that's always something that was very important. So, and the reasoning why certain things are done a certain way, or why there are certain teachings in part of those things. And that's just part of like knowledge and history for when they say that, oh, these things have just been passed down from generation to generation, and different medicines, because a lot of times what happens is the more the knowledge grows sometimes, also different medicines come about, and that they're maybe given further knowledge in gathering certain medicines and like that, things like that, to help people. And when we're looking at that, like what Dan was talking about, is that spirits can come and give people songs, give people the knowledge and how to use certain medicines and what to use for certain things. The song he was singing is calling forth, those spirits to heal others, to help others. And a lot of times in sweat lodges and stuff, maybe some of the very first songs they sing have to do with bringing those forward and bringing the vibration along with there, because the drum also has a vibration. And a lot of times just using the drum alone can break up sickness. So it's easier to bring out of the body. And there are different practices for that. Also increasing vibration of an individual or the person that's getting help can also bring about that healing for them, because maybe certain parts of their body isn't vibrating the way it could have been, or they may need a higher vibration within them to defeat a sickness. Dan?
I was just saying that we also use chords and rattles for certain doctrines and for certain ceremonies, and so you'll hear those too, and different nations and different societies within different nations will use all of these things in different ways. I've heard people say that they were going to adopt one of our kids and they were going to raise them culturally, and I have to laugh, because there's none of us that could learn culturally just of our own culture. All there is to learn between the plants and the songs and the ceremony and death and birth and life a marriage and every divorce and separation and sickness and cancer and tuberculosis and all the conditions that we have. So, but it's good to aspire to raise culturally. So we have many societies. And one thing I really appreciate, Sean, this last 3 years in a way that I never had before COVID was the power of our ceremony and the power of our culture to help us keep our balance, to help us face the storm, to help us face the unknown of death and dying, of sickness and illness, of catastrophic kinds of conditions.
Check.
So thank you, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
Love you
Yeah, to
too,
understand this a little bit better, looking at a student learning things, in order for them to understand something fully, students can be expected to listen to one teacher for years in order to build the right foundation that would help them in building a stronger base where all other things may be built from. Without the correct foundation, one can only build something so high before it may topple. So too is this like a spiritual base from which to build upon. We must look at directions by which, because directions hold certain gifts or assistance from the spirits or elements of those directions. By taking or adopting various teachings, the base may not be as strong, as certain teachings act as mortar in a sense to hold the base together, which may not blend well all the time with other practices until a much later time. To bring about cohesion and sustainable balance and strength, and how high one's gifts may be built upon, must be considered and taken seriously, or one may harm or may be led astray by differences that one will meet if listening to too many at once. This causes confusion, as well as the shaky and weakened base from which to build upon. Just as we help those who need strength, patience, and perseverance in our clients and those who we help, we must take this seriously. So basic teachings are very important to client success. This allows the people to move forward with focus and strength and determination to succeed and eventually walk up a path which they were meant to follow. Change is hard, but it comes with strength. It helps us to strengthen ourselves, and one step at a time is important to the success of an individual, as well as the ability to maneuver in an ever-changing life. Reminding our clients that moving forward takes patience, and getting outside or trying to move too fast can be dangerous to success. Dan?
And what part of, because it's protective. These things are protective, they're inspirational, they have to do with renewal. And I encourage people not to aspire to a medicine that's not yours. Don't be jealous of the attention that someone has because of their medicines. Rather, check your own GPS. Spend your own time in fasting and prayer. Spend your own time with Tunkashla Akantaka, with Teo Akantaka, with Creator. Spend your own time, and how can you be in a hurry? And one of the things I really like about the time of fasting, and while he spoke of 40 days, I've certainly never participated in a fast like that, but I participated up to 9 days at a time. And I find that the water is the most difficult part. When we call on help, so that the song that I sang was a calling where we're calling on our higher power directly. And I called on it in two iterations, you might say, of our understanding of that higher power. But I'm going to go ahead and share, and I hope some of you felt something, as I called forth. I hope you felt the Daku Akaskaska, the energy that we call forth with that song. And so I'm going to do a second one. The girls have left to visit one of their friends, but a second one, and this is a 4 direction song. And so we go to each of the directions. And sometimes when the troubles are too great, have you ever just gone out in the wind and stood and just let the wind carry your problems? Let the wind take your discouragement. Let the wind take your fear, take your hurt, take your anger. Have you ever done that? And given thanks for the wind, given thanks for the power of the wind. Because we have needs sometimes that we're not able to address. So I'm going to share with you a 4-direction song, if that's okay with you. And these are not the way. This is just our way. And there's so many our ways that are all part of the way, of a way that Tunkashlo Akantanka has reached out to us and allowed us to connect. We are feata e tuayo, ni tu kashila ai tua. Oh, oe, J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O, tua, hey, oe. Wasiataka, hey, tuayo, ni tu kashela, hey, tua, hey, oe. J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O, tua, hey, I. We all can pata hey tuayo, me tu kashita, I tue, J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O, hey-o, I. Eto kagata, tuayo, ni tu kashela, ai, no, oi, J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O, dahi tuai, okelo, ai. Wakatakea hey tuayo, wakataka hey chita hey kelo, oi, J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O, hey tua, hey okelo, hai. Makatakia e tuayo, nikushiku e chika no kelo, ai, J-K-I-O, J-K-I-O. Now Madakwias. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Dan. Right now I got to get going to another meeting, but I sent you an email, Dan.
Okay, I'll thanks for letting us know. And Ray, Shirley, Kiawe, Steve, I welcome your participation, but I'm hoping as folks, we're not entertaining what we're doing today. And that was the 4-direction song. And I also sang to the heavens and Anap Goktan, and sang to the earth too, to grandmother, to the directions above and the directions below. And we say that the sacred 7th direction for us as two-legged is us. For those of you that are sun dancers, that's the tree. That's the tree, the sacred tree, that enemy that we take and we pray with for those 4 days. And without getting into the details, because people that witnessed one of our most important of our 7 ceremonies among the Dakota Lakota, they thought it was too bloody. How intriguing. Because if one of you has a sore throat, they're going to cut your tonsils out. If you have a problem with, and Teresa, you come on board at any point. If you have a problem with your appendix, they're going to cut your appendix out. The Western medicine does a lot of stuff with destroying and removing. And they found our little sacrifices of flesh too bloody. But I guess in the Western way, we knock you out first. And everybody in the room is all gowned up and looking like they're in a spacesuit or something. So it's not quite as, I guess, graphic as our ceremonies. And we have many different ceremonies that do involve fluids and blood and things, and do involve maybe even a bit of pain, as does life, And so welcome to life. You will hurt in this life, you will laugh in this life, you will cry in this life. Grandson gets inspired, so he's getting better with language. He's wanting to join us here, but not wanting to be on camera. So he'll be the next generation of the songs. Teresa, Shirley, Kiawe, Ray, Steve, folks, any input at this point?
Yeah, I could have some input if that's okay.
Thank you.
So I've been listening, and I hear the acknowledgement of directions and the importance of practice and teaching. Now, I know that it's integral that someone finds a teacher to pass that on, or finds a student to pass that on to. And I have to speak about what's been happening within, our seventh generation. This one that we're in now, or that I'm in, is that we're seeing our old ones go away, and we're not seeing, that information being circulated. So there's a question for the ones who do have it, is to what to share, what not to share, and who to pass on to what, and having a general understanding of safe knowledge to pass and what is not safe to pass on to people is very, very important, because some of these things that you do are dangerous as a practitioner. And I'm not saying this as a legal sense, which it is very dangerous in a legal sense for us to practice a part of our religion, i.e. Providing physical medicines to people, because if someone does this nowadays and other people know about it, they are subject to legal action of being prosecuted for practicing without a license to practice medicine, for instance. But these ways that have been passed down, there is a tutelage that they take you under, and they show you these medicines. They show you in which prescriptions that they prescribe for each individual situation, much like our current medical system. But instead of having you go to school for a determined period of time, maybe 12 years, you are brought up in it from birth. So all the extracurricular things that you are experiencing within your life are completely filled with, these different kinds of tinctures, what to make, the roots, the stems, the aerials, the buds, having rhizomes and understanding what a rhizome is. All of these things are just a bare basic understanding of what plant structures are. And these are formulated into different kinds of prescription, like I was saying, of treatment of certain ailments. And those ailments may or may not be given a name within our culture. The medicines that are taken or prescribed for someone may even have a false name or a misnomer. One that comes to mind is one that's used to get tar out of your lungs, and our family calls it Queen of the Meadow or jewelweed, which are two actual plants but those two kinds of things are not the same plant that is being told about. So having an understanding of what you're looking at and being able to differentiate what the rest of the population, may see as those two plants is something that is an interpretive sense, but is taught as well for the knowledge to be kept secret within the teaching as well as within the prescription. Because if someone says, well, they use jewelweed or they used, Queen of the Meadow, and then they say, well, that has no, botanical effect on, your nervous system, has no botanical effect on circulation or respiration. I don't see what that would have done. So it's kind of like a practice that is being seen as maybe non-effective treatment. But I would rather that exist and that information, whoever is carrying it, be able to practice those things that we know is of proof, that has been proven to be successful and has proven to be an active practice within our people. And the sacrifice that Sean was speaking of human sacrifice, of being able to find more medicines. This has been in an existence since the beginning of time in humans. How did we get all the medicine knowledge that we do have? Someone had to try it. Someone had to find, a prescription for an ailment. And where I grow up, it's said that there is every known cure for every disease that has ever happened and ever will happen here within our mountains. But the knowledge may not be present within the people. So you must be able to listen to spirit, and you must be able to inventory the messages that do come to you, and for you to be able to find those things. And another practice that, is built into the teachings is that you never pick the first thing that you find. Try to find a second or third before you pick it, because if you need it and it's an emergency, you will know where it's at. And the idea of horticulture, of medicine, and those kinds of plants that willingly pull themselves up from the ground, you should not be trying to create medicine gardens, because it is trying to put a humanistic standpoint on what cannot be prescribed within that environment and that spirit of that plant. It is not acknowledging where that plant wanted to be, because it says, well, in our teachings, that plant has decided to place itself there. And for me to uproot it and try to put it somewhere that it was not choosing to be is an act or a force of not being a good steward of the land, the knowledge, and the information that you hold. So you must seek them out. This will also increase your amount of knowledge within your terrain, but it is also very difficult. And you must always be on scan for these kinds of things in case someone needs it. There may not be a lot of people who's asking for those individuals anymore, but there are still some people out there asking. And to being able to have those teachings inherent within you as you practice your life, it changes how you see the world, and it changes how people experience you. And that idea of when we leave you, Dan, and you have that feeling within you, that medicine that you speak of between us, and how that medicine is when you leave me and when I leave you, and to see that kind of medicine, have fruit within our relationships. Those are kinds of things that you are taught to notice, to study, and to look for, problems or solutions, or an active environment to look for answers within. Because if you don't know how to interpret the signs, then the medicine will not come to you. Even if it's been passed to you, you will not understand what to do or where to go, and you will not find that medicine. It is not meant for you to find. And being okay with that is part of that process that no one really talks about. And sometimes you might be the only answer, but if you're not the answer for that person, they either need to go to someone else or they need to accept what is happening. And these are the kinds of things that, you know, I think of when you both are speaking. And you know, of course, tell me if I'm incorrect or if I'm stepping over, you know, any kind of boundary line. But that's what come to my mind when I've been listening today.
Thank you, Yahweh, and it's so important. See, if back to Buffy St. Marie when she said once, people say I have visions because I'm Indian. I think I have visions because there's visions to have. Your belief filters your experience, and so I'm going to ask Teresa to speak. Then I'm going to ask Shirley, and then I'm going to ask Ray, and I hope we have some time for other folks to weigh in. But if we don't, weigh in with us with your spirit and say prayers for us. And thanks so much for listening into our good vibration session. I hope it, if it raises more questions than answers, that's a good thing. You can carry that on into this spring and summer season. Go ahead, Teresa.
I mean, as I've been listening here today too, I was thinking about spring, New Year's, new life, and the kind of the beginning of it. So we have that story where Zhawanang and Kiwetnanang, the south wind and the north wind, come to fight, and who they were fighting over and what they were fighting over. But the north wind, Kiwetnanang, that stern old one, he kept us cold here in the snow and the winter, the longer darkness. And when Zhawanang come in, that south wind, what he brought and what life came with and what melted away, what left us. And so you think about that, and they're not the creator, but they're like a sub god, as some would call it, great spirit beings. And so that world they bring in with us, you know, when they come. And so just like when somebody comes in that's larger than life in your home or your child, how your world changes, that dynamic, that energy, that spirit. So, but these are great beings. And so their world comes in and our world changes. And so how do you change when somebody comes in your home, your child, something like this? It changes the dynamic. And so things start to wake up here, and that we're asleep because of the cold and come to life. And you know, the science and the energy of all of that. But the earth, when you first wake up in the morning, what do you say as you yawn? Ah, you make that noise. How does your body feel? What is the earth doing during this time? That is, Doc Foster spoke on the cracking of the ice, sounds like the thunders and gunshots, and you can see it in the branches on the pine trees and the maples letting down. You can see them relaxing, just like your body physiologically does as you wake up and go and stretch, even if you want to do that right now, and relax and feel spring as we talk about. And so I think about the medicines and the impact of what that spirit brings, the character, the personality, you know, that brings within us that new life and new beginning. But when we release and let go in life, and that's one of the ceremonies that we do in spring too, is that making room for the new beginnings, that releasing and letting go. If somebody comes and is bad to you, hurts you, does you wrong, or your loved one, how were you just before that incident occurred? What was going on? What was your life? What was your aspirations? What was your plans for tomorrow? What was your heart like? How are you feeling in this way, thinking about life, thinking about day, going on like this? And then this incident occurs, right? They shoot at you while you're spearfishing, or your loved one, or something, whatever's going on. Who knows? The teacher told you you didn't do your work right. You know you didn't study hard. You were too busy watching that series on TV. So that one's on you, but still, when these things occur, whose is that? If it was your doing, then what do you do with it? Did you like it? Do you want to feel this way? Do I change how this is? And do I let go that past behavior? Moment, spring. And then I move on with the lesson and I carry forward, I do right by it. Or if it was something done to you, well, whose ugliness is that? Is that yours to carry out with your heart rate going and all these horrible chemicals as you feel it? You tighten up like winter, like those pines and those maples and those, you tighten up right up in here, everything tightens up. But when you finally let it go, what they call forgiveness, that release of not holding on to, it's not yours, it's theirs. It goes back wherever it goes. Ah, like spring, that let go, that new life, that new beginning. So I think about that. And who else is coming in whose characters are changing and have duties to do just like us? Come spring, we're noticing what's going on, what we're going to gather, what we're going to be a part in. Maybe it's a sport thing for you. Maybe it's something else. Maybe you're a storyteller. Your stories are changing. Your spirit's coming in a different way. Just like your story, your whole being changes when you tell a different kind of story. So what happens then is this goes on here, with this new beings coming in. Well, grandmother moon, our women's teachings, new life, new beginning, that's birth, that's women's teachings, but we got the men's too. Grandfather's son, he's here longer and brighter. He is warming us more. The fires are getting lit for the sugar bush and keeping them warm and boiling the sap. That's the men's teachings there too. So the balance is always there. We all have our place and our role, but it's changing because it's another season, another duty. And so grandmother moon, what is she doing? What was she doing all winter? And now what is she doing? She is pulling the medicines up, the plants up, the berry bushes are waking up, the roots are stretching in the earth. You might not see it quite right now up top the earth, but inside she is doing her job. She's diligently working. And she's got her focus over here, over there. And so her focus changes, just like if your child versus your love comes in the room, your focus changes. So where can we set this and what can we support and where should our focus be? And what should we be carrying with us? What is still is this moment, still is all of this going on, no matter what ugliness has been brought into your life and your lap. So what do we hold on to? How do we tend to it? What do we let go? So I think about those things and that medicine of this time of year and going out, taking a drive, just paying attention and feeling it, just noticing their moments and letting go of yours. It's okay. It's not neglecting or abandoning or anything. It's not running away from your life or your problems. Instead, when you connect and you let go for a moment and step away for a moment into what is natural, what is good, what is here for us, what is doing the natural thing, and you go and you breathe with it, you might be able to find the solutions to what you're dealing with a little better and come back and handle it in a little better way. The branches show us, the standing people, to lift your arms. Doc Foster was doing this singing. Now there's been neurological studies that have shown if you hold your arms up for at least 2 minutes, the chemicals that are released within your system into your brain, it changes your whole thinking. It's so good for you. So all of our teachings around us, this natural law, this natural university, as Doc Foster was calling it, has been teaching us the absolute truths that science is catching up to, but is now able to validate and prove. So we got to get back out in there. Even if you're a city Indian and you don't know your teachings, your teachers are all around you to pay attention. Just take it in and go from there, one step at a time. That's where we all started from, even our old ones. And so the other topic I want to jump on real quick was what you guys were speaking on, the medicines. And the medicine teachings, it was rare to find a medicine person. Typically for us, it was a woman that knew those teachings. They changed it to the men, as the white ways. They didn't even honor their own women. The white women didn't get rights to the 70s. But not that men didn't know. The people all knew the basic staple medicines, which would be like your medicine cabinet, Pepto-Bismols and aspirins and things like that, and Bengays. We all knew our kind of staple basic stuff. But the thing is, the people are running to the medicines, and the medicine person is going to go and take this life. They're supposed to be working with spirit because quite a few different medicines can help with quite a few of the same different problems. But what works best for your system and where you're at right now is going to be one of them specifically. And so spirit is what works with them on that. You can't just know this is going to work and use it because it works for this. It might not mix with a food or another medicine you're taking. And it's these medicines, they support a better life for us. It can save our life. But the balance of that is they can take it too. You have to take their life in order to. There's families of them growing out there, and you're taking their relative. And they do feel that pain. Science has proven that. They feel that. So they're giving and they're sacrificing for you. Are you willing to change what brought that sickness? If it was something psychological due to the dysfunctions in the family, are you going to stay in that dysfunction, or are you going to say this cycle stops now and be diligent? If it is due to your cigarette smoking or your drinking of alcohol and things like that, are you going to change it? If it's due to your eating of the fried foods or the soldier fort rations, so now you have these other ailments, are you going to change your diet now that it's fixed? I listened to a young man in Ontario a couple weeks back, and he was talking about a medicine that worked for sciatica. And they found, sure as heck, yep, in the science found that what it does is it protects that lining right along there. It brings the inflammation down, and what causes the sciatica, these different things. But what also takes away that lining that protects, that sheath that protects, is white spruce. The flowers, the white flowers, all these things is what's causing it. So if you take this medicine, but you don't change it and you keep going back, that medicine's going to get mad. It's not going to want to keep supporting you to do what? Give its life to do what? So we don't mix these ways, and we be careful about it. And spirit knows best what's for who. So to be careful with these medicines, and because they're going to be careful with you. They're going to take care of you. And I'll pass it on to whoever's next. I would like to, if we have a
Okay,
chance.
Teresa, I think we're out of time at 1:30. Are we, Steve?
No, we're going till the top of the hour, Doc. So we're,
Awesome.
yes,
Thank you,
we
Teresa.
are right on the money
I
here.
was-
So we are.
I was
breaking.
sweating it because I wanted audience, because there's many people listening that we want to hear from you. Thank you,
Yes,
Teresa.
we're
Lovely.
fine. We've got
And
a
the biggest
full-
thing that I hope you're hearing is our relationship. It's not a relationship that's centered on the human beings. We're part of a bigger world, both inward and outward. And if we don't have deference and we don't have respect for all that supports our life, what's wrong with us? You heard Kiawe talk about, we're not capitalistic in these ways. We're relational. We're not transactional, we're relational. The plant nation literally speaks with us, guys, but not if you don't believe that. You'll never hear the cry, nor will you hear the blessing. The four-leggeds literally speak with us. If you fasted long enough somewhere, you'll find that the four-leggeds will take you into their world. By the third or fourth day, they'll start including you, whichever ones come out in the evening, whichever ones come out in the morning, whichever ones come out in the midday. You'll realize that there's systems and there's movement and there's changes, and among the winged ones as well. And so and even the insects, I won't get into that, but surely we would love to hear from you. And thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you, Steve.
Okay, I did it. I unmuted. Of course, you guys trigger all kinds of things when you talk. And I'm Shirley Holmberg. I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm Tony Tsagal-Sifna, and commonly known as Athabascan. And just listening triggered so much in me that there's so much. And I just turned 70 March 5th, and I realized that, there's just so much to the spirit world, or understanding our spiritual teachings, understanding just life in general, or understanding anything out there. And then there's also men's and women's knowledge. I always think of men's and women's knowledge, and you know, when I'm in a mixed audience and I get asked a question that's clearly a question that only a male can answer, I have to say that I'm a woman, you know, that's part of men's knowledge, and I don't know or never been taught anything like that. So I would defer to a man because I don't have that knowledge. I have women's knowledge. I know some things. And there's so much, as we all know, to the spirit world. I've been around healers most of my life, and not just up here in the interior in Alaska, all over. When I was 18, I went to college in Davis, California, and I got to go to this ecumenical conference. And if you know the word ecumenical, it has to do with church. But our whole, it was the all Indian school, and we all went to Old Arribe, Arizona. And they had gotten us students from our school to take care of the fire. And I believe it was for 7 days, and also to keep people out that they did not want out, didn't want at that ceremony. And we did just that. But I was exposed to Thomas Binyaka, if some of you know who Thomas is. And there was Oren Lyons. I was exposed to them because I was going to school outside of Alaska. And then throughout my life, I've done a lot of work just with people. And I went to a thing in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, that University of Lethbridge put on, and that was with Phil Lane Jr. And I went there for 4 years, and there were healers that came from all over the world there. And the purpose was to teach each other and also to heal up, is what I felt it was. So all kinds of ceremonies, all kinds of teachings, and very, very spiritual place to be. I went there 4 years, and then I also went to the Healing Ourselves Worldwide. That was the first one was in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. People came from all over the world. One of our workshops had about 300 people in it. So, you know, just I've been exposed to so much, and I'm taught that we can all teach somebody something. If I encounter you, you know, just in a day's time, and I see you and say hello and greet you, and you're going to teach me something, and I'm going to teach you something. It may not be something, it may be something really good, and it may be something not so good, but you're going to teach me something. So I'm of that mind the majority of the time, from small children to adults to elders. And I don't limit myself to just because I've been exposed to so much. You know, I've been to sweat lodges, I've been to our ceremonies, I've been, you know, for some reason, Creator had me go all over these different places and gathered knowledge, right? I've gathered knowledge in my life. And I wrote like four pages, 5 pages maybe. And up here in Alaska right now, where I'm from, in the interior, I was test driving cars. And the farthest I went was 569 miles in one day. It was awesome. I saw a baby bison. A baby bison. Have you ever seen a small bison? It was on the road. What a cute little animal. And another driver was with me, and we were talking about what is it doing here all alone, and where's the rest of the herd, and where's its mama? Why isn't this baby with its mom? So I chose to pray for it. Its eyes was open, and we had to keep driving, and I prayed for it. We went another 100, almost 100 miles, turned around, came back. And here was the baby bison standing up. And we had stopped. It stood up, walked across the road and started eating. So it must have wanted to let us know it was alive and it was okay, because it walked across the road right in front of us. So, even that bison taught us something. Also blessed to see in the springtime up here, the caribou are migrating. We saw, I don't know how many caribou migrating. And of course, the snow is deep and some of the caribou were sinking through the snow, but they were migrating on their path to wherever they're going to feed next and stay next. That was really cool. And of course, there's moose everywhere. I mean, the snow is deep. The moose can't get around in the deep snow. It's icy. I've seen moose slip. So they're trying to eat, of course, willow shoots. It's sunny, bright, and the willows are growing so fast. The moose have a lot of food, but they try to stay on the paths that are already in existence, or they get on the road if they're near a road. And we've seen some on the ice, down on the ice, and then there's some little willows and stuff, and they were I called them a flock of moose, but that's not what they are. They're I don't even know what they call them, a herd, man's knowledge again. But some were laying there and some were eating and some were walking, and it was just really cool. I was so blessed to test drive cars for almost 2 months, because we get to go long distances. I think the shortest distance I went was 169 miles. But if you're by yourself, I pray quite a bit, and I was just blessed to see all this beauty. If you've been to Alaska, you've seen it. And of course, spiritual, I pray quite a bit. So there's so much to talk about. This spirit to spirit thing, I was taught that I could sit across from you and I could hear you. And I actually was tested in that, and I could hear this old man that came up. He came up to talk to us about having a spirituality conference up here, native spirituality. But I was tested in listening to that old man just by thoughts. And his helper asked me, what did he say? And I said, he said that us younger people need to start doing what he does, because he's getting old and we need to teach the younger people. So the old man just nodded his head up and down. Yep, that's what I said. So I understand that we can understand each other spirit to spirit. And also I'm taught that if we think a thought towards someone, it's going to affect them, even if it's 300 miles away or 1,000 miles away, it's going to affect them. So what we think toward people really will affect them, so I'm all about trying to do love, 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 love. No. Trying to think good things toward people. It's hard sometimes, but I do it because I know about the spiritual repercussion that could happen to me. I think Teresa was talking about that, or somebody, stuff can come back. I understand that all of you here have gifts that I may not have. And, we all have different gifts, spiritual gifts, but ours aren't all the same. Might be a little bit the same, but not all the same. And there's this old man, his name was Crosland Smith. I believe he's Cherokee. Does anybody know Crosland Smith? He's a neat old man. He was at our Healing Ourselves Worldwide in Albuquerque when it was held there. And that old man, he taught us the most powerful way to heal. And there was probably about 300 people in his workshop. And he didn't want to, he talked about it, but he didn't want to do it with us because there were so many. And me and my doctor friend from up here, her and I stayed behind to say thank you and everything. And then there was only about 8 of us standing around. And I asked him, because I'm pretty bold, might not seem like it, but I'm pretty bold. I asked him if he could show us the most powerful way to heal, because there was just a few of us there. And he agreed to do it. And he showed us how to do that. And after we were done, it just took a short time. He had us put our hand on the person next to us on their neck. And the other side, on the left side, you put your hand on their heart. And then he prayed. And when we were done, it was just like somebody wiped everything out of me that wasn't good. It was just like I wasn't floating, but I was so clean inside. But I believe that we heal each other. You know, if we could do that, we could heal each other. But we don't use our hands because of, you know, abuse and all that, all the laws around that, sexual harassment and stuff. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I could talk forever and a day, and we have 17 more minutes or something like that. And thank you for listening. I appreciate it. And I could talk for days, but I'll stop. Anabasi.
Absolutely love your sharing, Shirley. Thank you for sharing from the north, and you as well, Teresa and Ray. We sure welcome some words from you.
Mm. We've heard some very kind teachings from different parts of native country, from the east where Kwabe's from, and from the northern Great Lakes where Teresa's from, and from the plains where Dan is from, and from the far north where my sister Shirley's from. And I appreciate that. So we're getting bits and pieces of different regions in native country in our learning today, and I really appreciate that. And I see in the chat list folks from other parts of the country, and I'm from the Southwest lands of the northern continent, more particularly in the plateau of the Four Corners region. Being Navajo, we have laid much of our ways around where we are in the Four Corners region of the what is called the Four Corners region of the colonized lands, but what we refer to as the Natra, or land of our people. And we come from a real diverse area, Navajo land. Our western lands are fairly dry, and our eastern lands are fairly dry, and the middle lands are a mix of mountains and valleys. So we have some diversity there, and then also our language is vibrant and very descriptive of who we are as a people, and who we can be as a people, but mainly who we are. As I was hearing our teachers today talk about where their thoughts are and where they're from, there was a Navajo word phrase that kept coming to my mind, and the Navajo phrase is "ina, ina," and I think my granddaughter AJ Curley, who's online, can appreciate or Alberta Curley can appreciate where I'm coming from with that phrase. She's Danette also, and a real good teacher as well as anything. So I appreciate that she's here with us. But ina in Navajo is a phrase, is a global phrase that kind of pared down to describe living. And living in the net way, like many of our native ways, is a process of adapting to the changes that happen daily, within the day, weekly, and across the seasons. And as colonized people, we have adopted the colonized process of measuring time, minutes, hours, seconds, and the Gregorian calendar. We've adopted those ways to kind of stay in touch with our acculturated lives that we have. And so ina, the process of living has with it what I consider to be, what I'm told to be, a forward Nasako process, where we take the experiences that we get, that we given across the spectrum of negative and positive, because negative and positive experiences are spectrum, they're not set points. We have very negative experiences and we have very positive experiences, but in that process of experiences, we take them into who we are and into our thinking. On Sete case, we think about and consider and contemplate the processes of experiences that we have, and then as we on Sete case, we consider, contemplate on what that means to us individually, such that we take these experiences that happen and build a world. We build a personal world. We make a personal world for ourselves that is framed and being the Napawaja, which means being a grounded, positive individual, the Napawaja, and take the spectrum of positive and negative experiences and keep building on doing towards that, and making our learning and our teachings frame how our heart becomes and how our heart is each time. Those of us that are taught these ways, we're encouraged to be kind and gentle and respectful in our life, and how we approach others, others being other human beings and other than that, and the whole variety of creation that's there with us, because creation is there through the efforts of our holy people. And as creations of our holy people, then they are all respected as sacred, as well as ourselves. And this time of the year, with a weather change happening towards a more warmer time, days are getting warmer, the daylight is lengthening, and we come into these particular seasons aware, like I heard described earlier, that our environment is changing with it. You know, we have plants that have thrived through the winter season with us, mainly like cedar and sage, and many of the plants are able to withstand the cold that we have. And so we have a time when other vegetation comes up and begin to make themselves ready for us. So around this time of the year, we begin our first harvesting of herbs and plants for our use and for each other. And that comes through spring, and then we have birthing of our herds. You know, that happens as well. Our lambs and goats and animals that we cherish begin to come into the world as well. And so we have these things happening, and then going in, this is March, and going into April, we begin making effort to prepare our lands for crops, which means beginning to realize that our gardens and our farming work begins to happen. So we have these two things that happen concurrently within our life, and many kids are born throughout the year, and we respect that, because children and all the other creations that are around us are sacred that way. And this is part of our spring process. And one of our ceremonies, the Wajonja, in Anglo in the colonized language described as beauty way, is adapted to account for these seasonal changes also. Songs are put together a little bit differently, and some of the teachings that go with it are put together a little bit differently to acknowledge the coming crop season, the birthing of young among our herds, and process of taking what we've learned previously and then moving into the coming warmer days to be able to live with each other and to be able to support each other and carry through the coming season of summer in the challenges that come with summer, and I guess in a steadfast way where we're grounded people that way. And from what I understand, Ina, going back to that phrase, encompasses all of that. And we move from in the colder season, we have particular ceremonial practices that aren't done fully going into spring, and then we begin to adapt our ways to the coming spring and summer practices that we have, and so our lives begin to shift that way. And there's a lot of preparation that goes with that. I know mentors and teachers, mentors and their students begin to get together to get ready for how they're going to do the summer practices that we have. So there's a lot of work that happens around this time, around preparation for cropping and raising of our young lambs and horses going into the summer, and how we're going to be with each other during this time. So in the presentations that I heard, that phrase "ina" is a phrase I thought I'd kind of build my my description around as best I can with what I know. And from the teachers that I've had in my humble life, and the teachings that I've heard across many other nations, like Shirley has said, in my travels and my experiences with the many tribes in our country. So I think I'll close with that as we begin to finish our time together.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everything that's been taught to me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I think if folks are good, I'd like to wrap up from the West Coast with Doug. Doug, you with us still? You want to close us out there, Doug? Thank you, brother. You're muted.
We still can't hear you, Doug.
You can stop recording maybe.
Do we need to pause the recording?
I'm on double Zoom with my kids for spring break too, so you might hear the background.
Double Zoom.
Thank you, Creator, for another wonderful day in paradise. Thank you for bringing us all together. Thank you for the awesome teachings that we've learned today. Thank you for keeping us all safe. Watch out for all our people who are suffering still from either addiction or whatever it might be. Please look out for all of our families. Keep us all well. Thank you again for bringing us all together and teaching us this awesome stuff. Hey. Thank you, Ray. Steve, Daniel, everybody, Teresa, awesome.
We are approaching the top of the hour. I want to thank our panelists, and again, I want to apologize for some technical difficulties in the beginning, but I think we made it through. And also want to just remind everyone that we will reach out to you post-event and ask that you participate in a short survey. Join us on April 8th, 1 to 3 p.m. Central. We're going to do part 3 of this series, and we'll continue this conversation with our panelists. So we look forward to seeing you, and we'll be reaching out with registration options to join us for that event. So until then, thank everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay connected, everyone. See you again.